He was the greatest horseman in the territory, but even he couldn't tame the giant wild stallion they called Tempest. All the men had failed. As they prepared to put the beast down, a tiny, silent girl stepped into the ring. And what happened next would become a legend. This is their story. The air in the Stone Canyon Ranch Corral was thick with the metallic tang of fear and the swirling dust of defeat. For an hour, Jedediah Stone, a man whose reputation was built on breaking the unbreakable, had been locked in a brutal battle of wills with a magnificent black stallion. Tempest was a force of nature, a creature of midnight muscle and furious, intelligent eyes. He had been captured from the wild a month ago, and since then, had violently rejected every attempt to be tamed. He had thrown the best riders. He had snapped ropes as if they were thread. Now, he and Jed were locked in a stalemate. The horse stood in the center of the ring, its sides heaving, its black coat covered in sweat and dust, a deep, angry gash on its flank from a splintered fence post. Jed stood opposite him, his own face grim, his arm aching from a near miss, his pride lying broken in the dirt. He, the man who could whisper a horse into submission, had met his match. His men, the most experienced cowboys in the valley, leaned against the fence, their faces a mixture of fear and awe. They had all tried. They had all failed. The horse was not just wild. It was broken, its spirit twisted by a trauma they could not see, and it responded to their brand of masculine force with nothing but greater violence. Jedediah, his patience finally shattered, made the decision. A horse that could not be broken was a horse that could not be trusted. A horse that could not be trusted was worthless, or worse, a danger. He gave a curt, angry nod to one of his men. The message was clear. It was time to put the animal down. As the ranch hand walked towards the barn to fetch a rifle, a small, quiet voice cut through the tense silence. "Papa, wait." Jedediah turned, his heart stopping. Standing by the gate, having slipped past the distracted men, was his 6-year-old daughter, Lily. Her face was pale, her large, serious eyes fixed on the heaving, dangerous stallion. Before Jed could shout, before he could move, she did something that made every man there gasp. She unlatched the gate, and with a calm, serene confidence that was utterly out of place, she stepped into the ring. The ring where a dozen grown men were now too afraid to tread. A wave of panic washed over Jedediah. He started to lunge for her, but one of his older, wiser hands put a hand on his arm, stopping him. "Don't spook the horse, boss," he whispered. And so, they could only watch, their hearts in their throats, as the tiny, fragile girl in a simple pioneer dress walked slowly, deliberately, towards the giant, enraged beast that had just defeated them all. The monster of the corral and the innocent child were now face to face. The air in the corral crackled with a terrifying silence. The giant black stallion, Tempest, stood frozen, its muscles bunched, its wild eyes fixed on the tiny human who had dared to enter its violent space. Jedediah and his men held their breath, their hands hovering over their pistols, expecting the horse to charge at any moment. But it didn't. It simply watched, its head lowered slightly, as Lily continued her slow, calm approach. She stopped a few feet away, just beyond the reach of its powerful hooves. She did not try to touch him. She did not speak. She simply stood, her presence a small, unthreatening island of peace in a sea of masculine fury. And then, she began to hum. It was a soft, simple tune, a melody so gentle it seemed to be absorbed by the dusty air. It was a lullaby her mother had taught her, a song of quiet fields and peaceful streams. A remarkable thing happened. The wild, panicked look in Tempest's eyes began to soften. The tense, bunched muscles in its powerful shoulders seemed to relax. The horse took a small, hesitant step forward, not with aggression, but with a deep, cautious curiosity. It was a silent, magical truce, a language that only the child and the horse seemed to understand. Jedediah, stunned into silence, slowly lowered his hand from his gun. He didn't understand what he was seeing, but he knew it was something sacred. He gave a silent, almost imperceptible signal to his men. They backed away slowly, leaving the girl and the horse in their own quiet world. The execution was postponed. In the days that followed, Jedediah, humbled and deeply perplexed, forbade anyone from approaching the corral. The horse was now Lily's secret, and their secret friendship began to blossom. Every afternoon, while her father was out on the range, Lily would sneak away to the pen. She never tried to ride him. She never tried to force him. She would simply sit by the fence, just inside the gate, and talk to him. She would tell him about her day, about the butterfly she saw, about the picture she drew. She told him about her mother, how much she missed her, and how sometimes she felt sad and angry too, just like him. She was not trying to tame a beast. She was comforting a friend. She would bring him offerings: a crisp apple from the cellar, a handful of sweet clover from the meadow. At first, she would leave them on the ground for him, but day by day, he would step closer, until eventually, he was taking them directly from her small, outstretched hand. Jedediah, though he pretended not to, watched this unfold from a distance. He saw the untamable monster that had defeated him with brute force now nuzzle his daughter's hair with a surprising gentleness. He saw the wild, kicking beast now stand perfectly still as Lily sang her soft lullabies. He saw a form of communication, a form of power that he had never known. It was not the power of muscle and rope, but the power of patience, of empathy, of a kindness so pure it could soothe even the most savage of hearts. The methods of the best cowboys in the territory had failed. But the simple, honest friendship of a 6-year-old girl was beginning to work a miracle. Jedediah Stone was a man of logic. He believed in what he could see and touch, the strength of a good rope, the sharpness of a branding iron, the unyielding will of a man against a horse. The quiet, strange peace he had witnessed between his daughter and the stallion was something his practical mind could not compute. He told himself it was a fluke, a temporary calm before another inevitable storm of violence. He still kept the rifle cleaned and ready, certain that the horse's true, savage nature would eventually reemerge. One afternoon, a broken fence in the far pasture forced him to return to the ranch hours earlier than planned. As he rode into the main yard, a sudden, panicked thought seized him. The yard was too quiet. Lily was nowhere to be seen. A cold dread, the primal fear of a father, gripped his heart. He knew, with a terrible certainty, where she would be. He ran to the secluded corral, his boots kicking up dust, his mind flashing with horrifying images of what he might find. He was preparing to leap the fence, pistol in hand, to defend his daughter. But the scene that met his eyes stopped him dead in his tracks. It was not a scene of violence. It was a scene of impossible, breathtaking trust. Lily was not just in the pen. She was standing in the very center, and Tempest was with her. But the horse was not standing. It was lying down. The giant, powerful beast, the untamable monster, was lying peacefully on its side in the warm afternoon sun, its massive head resting near her small feet. And Lily was gently brushing its long, black mane with a small, worn brush, her soft humming the only sound in the quiet air. Jedediah stared, his mind refusing to process what his eyes were seeing. A horse lying down in the presence of a human was the ultimate sign of submission and trust. It was a vulnerability that Tempest had never shown to any man, not even for a second. The horse was not just tolerating her presence. It was at peace with her. It felt safe. As he watched, hidden by the corner of the barn, Lily finished her brushing. She then did something that made Jedediah's heart stop. She curled up beside the stallion's massive head, using its powerful shoulder as a pillow, and pulled a small storybook from her pocket. She began to read aloud, her small, clear voice telling a story of brave knights and gentle dragons. Tempest did not move. He simply lay there, his large dark eye half closed, listening. In that moment, Jedediah Stone's entire world shifted on its axis. All his pride, all his experience, all his deeply held beliefs about strength and dominance, crumbled into dust. He had tried to break this horse with force, and had only created more violence. His 6-year-old daughter, armed with nothing but a gentle heart, a soft song, and a storybook, had achieved what he and his best men could not. She had not broken the horse's spirit. She had healed it. He slowly, quietly, backed away, his face a complex mixture of shock, shame, and a profound, overwhelming sense of awe. He had been so focused on teaching his daughter how to be strong in a hard world, he had completely failed to see the incredible strength she already possessed. It was a different kind of strength, a quiet power he had never understood. And as he walked back to the main house, the image of his tiny daughter reading to the giant, sleeping beast burned into his mind. He knew he had been wrong. Wrong about the horse, and wrong about his own child. He had to understand how. That evening, Jedediah did not retreat into the silence of his office, as he usually did. He found Lily on the front porch, watching the first stars appear in the twilight sky. He sat beside her, not as a stern father, but as a humbled student. The awkward distance that had grown between them since his wife's death, a distance filled with his own unspoken grief, finally began to close. For a long time, he just sat with her, the silence no longer empty, but filled with a new, shared respect. He finally turned to her, his voice quiet and stripped of all its usual authority. He asked her, simply and honestly, how she did it, how she had tamed the untamable, how she had earned the trust of a creature that met every other human with rage. Lily, in her simple, innocent way, explained. She told him that when she looked at Tempest, she didn't see a monster. She saw a creature that was loud on the outside, because it was scared on the inside. She said his eyes were like her own had been, right after her mama had gone to heaven, full of a sadness so big it turned into anger. And then, she revealed the heart of her secret. This was the plot twist, a truth so simple and so profound it would change Jedediah forever. So I sang him the song, the one Mama always sang to me when I had a bad dream. The sleepy song. The sleepy song. Jedediah's breath caught in his throat. He remembered that song. His late wife, Elena, had a special gift. She was a woman of quiet strength and a deep, almost mystical empathy for all living things. She could calm a spooked calf with a touch, mend a broken bird's wing, and her garden bloomed with a vibrancy that defied the harsh prairie soil. And she had her songs. Lullabies she had learned from her own grandmother, melodies that seemed to carry a strange, ancient magic of peace. He had always seen it as a charming quirk, a woman's gentle foolishness in a man's hard world. He had never truly understood it. Now, as his daughter spoke, the pieces of a puzzle he never knew existed began to fall into place. Lily explained that the first time she had hummed the lullaby near the corral, Tempest had stopped his thrashing and had turned his head, listening, his ears twitching, as if trying to catch a distant, familiar sound. The truth was a revelation, as beautiful as it was heartbreaking. Tempest was not responding to Lily alone. He was responding to the powerful, comforting memory of her mother. Elena had often visited the pastures, humming her quiet songs, her presence a balm to all the animals on the ranch. Tempest, a wild creature captured and thrown into a world of fear and violence, had remembered her. He remembered her scent, her gentle energy, and most of all, the melody of peace she carried with her. Lily was not a horse whisperer by magic. She was a horse whisperer by inheritance. She carried her mother's gift, her mother's empathy, her mother's song. In his grief, Jedediah had tried to make his daughter tough, to prepare her for a world without a mother. He had tried to build a wall around her heart. But Elena's legacy, her gentle strength, had found a way to bloom in their daughter anyway, a force more powerful than any wall he could ever build. He looked at his small daughter, her face illuminated by the moonlight, and for the first time in years, he truly saw his wife again. He saw her kindness, her wisdom, her incredible strength. He pulled Lily into a hug, a real, heartfelt hug, and for the first time since Elena's death, he allowed himself to truly weep. He was not just crying for his wife. He was crying for his own blindness, and for the beautiful, miraculous gift she had left behind in their child. The morning after his emotional breakthrough, Jedediah Stone was a changed man. The hard, prideful shell he had worn like armor for years had cracked, revealing the gentle, loving father that had been buried beneath a mountain of grief. He knew now that his methods, The methods of force and dominance he had relied on his entire life were not just ineffective, they were wrong. He had been trying to shout over the horse's pain, while his daughter had simply listened to it. He found Lily by the corral, already humming her soft tune to Tempest. He did not command her to step away. He did not warn her of the danger. He simply walked to the fence, leaned against it, and watched. He watched the way his daughter's small presence filled the large pen with a profound sense of calm. He watched the way the giant stallion would follow her, its head lowered, its movements relaxed and easy. After a long, quiet moment, he spoke, his voice filled with a humility that Lily had never heard before. "Lily Bug, can you teach me?" Lily turned, a bright, beautiful smile lighting up her face. And so began the most unusual apprenticeship in the territory. The great Jedediah Stone, the master horseman, became the student of his 6-year-old daughter. The first lesson was not about ropes or saddles. It was about listening. Lily told him he had to stop thinking so loud. She said Tempest could hear his anger and his impatience, and it made him scared. She made her father simply sit by the fence, just as she had, and be quiet. For a man like Jed, a man of action and commands, doing nothing was the hardest task in the world. Day by day, under his daughter's patient tutelage, he learned. He learned to approach the horse not as a conqueror, but as a guest. He learned to read the subtle language of its ears, the flick of its tail, the tension in its shoulders. Lily taught him the sleepy song, and though his own gruff voice could never match the gentle magic of his late wife's, the horse seemed to understand the intent behind it. The most important lesson was about touch. Jed's hands, calloused and strong, were used to controlling, to forcing. Lily showed him how to touch with gentleness, how to use a soft brush in long, soothing strokes, how to find the exact spot behind the horse's ears that made its eyes soften and its head droop with pleasure. They began to work together, a strange and wonderful team. Lily was the ambassador, her gentle presence the key that unlocked the horse's trust. Jedediah, with his strength and experience, was the builder, using that trust to slowly, carefully, introduce the saddle, the bridle, the weight of a rider. It was a slow, beautiful process of healing for all three of them. Jedediah was not just building a relationship with the horse, he was rebuilding his relationship with his daughter. They laughed together, worked together, and shared stories of Elena, her memory no longer a source of silent pain, but a warm, guiding light. But the world outside their peaceful trio was not so enlightened. A neighboring rancher, a man named Henderson, who had always been a bitter rival to Jedediah, had heard the stories. He had seen Jed's initial, humiliating failure with Tempest, and now he heard the ridiculous rumors of a 6-year-old girl taming the beast with songs. He saw an opportunity to mock his rival and, perhaps, to acquire a magnificent stallion for a bargain price. He rode over one afternoon, a cruel, mocking sneer on his face. He found Jedediah and Lily in the main corral, with Tempest walking calmly on a lead rope. Henderson laughed aloud. "Well, Stone, I heard the beast finally broke you. Reduced to taking lessons from a child, are we? It's a pathetic sight. A horse that needs lullabies is no horse at all. Sell him to me. I'll give you $10. My mines can always use another dumb animal to pull the carts." The insult was a deliberate provocation, designed to trigger Jedediah's infamous pride. The old Jed would have responded with fury, perhaps with his fists. But the man who stood there now was different. He looked at Henderson's ugly sneer, then at his daughter's hurt, worried face. He looked at Tempest, who had tensed at the sound of the aggressive voice. This was his all-in moment. The moment to choose which man he wanted to be. He simply shook his head, his voice calm and steady. "He's not for sale, Henderson. Every man has a price, and that thing is worthless to a real rancher." Jedediah coiled the lead rope, walked over to Tempest, and for the first time, swung himself onto the horse's bare back. He sat there, not as a conqueror, but as a partner. He then looked directly at his rival, his voice ringing with a new kind of authority, a quiet power that was more intimidating than any shout. "You're wrong. He's not worthless. He's been busy teaching me a lesson I was too stubborn to learn. He's teaching me that true strength isn't about breaking a spirit. It's about having the patience to heal one. And that, Henderson, is a lesson that is priceless. Now, get off my land. Henderson stared, speechless. He had come expecting a fight, a brawl, a display of the hot-headed pride Jedediah Stone was known for. Instead, he was met with a quiet, unshakable confidence that was more powerful than any physical threat. He looked at Jedediah, sitting easily on the back of the giant stallion that no man could ride. He saw the horse, Tempest, standing perfectly calm, its loyalty clear in the way it responded to Jed's gentle touch. He saw the small girl, Lily, standing by the horse's head, her hand resting on its neck, her face beaming with pride. He saw that he had not just lost an argument. He had witnessed something he could not comprehend. Defeated not by force, but by a quiet miracle, Henderson simply grunted, turned his horse, and rode away, the sound of his mocking laughter replaced by a stunned, resentful silence. The final confrontation was over, and it had been won without a single punch being thrown. As the rival rancher disappeared over the ridge, Jedediah slid off Tempest's back. He looked at Lily, his heart overflowing with a love and pride so immense it almost hurt. He had won the argument, but he knew who the real victor was. It was his daughter, and the enduring legacy of his wife. He knelt down in front of Lily, taking her small hands in his. "Your mother would have been so proud of you, Lilybug. I'm so proud of you. You taught me a lesson I should have learned a long time ago." He stood up and, in a gesture of ultimate trust, he turned to Tempest. He spoke to the great horse, not as a master, but as an equal. He then lifted his daughter, placing her gently on the stallion's broad back, right in front of him. He swung himself up into the saddle behind her, his strong arms a protective circle around her small body. Together, the three of them, the father, the daughter, and the horse that had healed them, both rode out of the corral. They didn't just walk. They moved into a smooth, easy canter, a perfect harmony of strength and trust. They rode out across the open pastures of the Stone Canyon Ranch, not as a master and his child, but as a family, whole once more. The cowboys of the ranch stopped their work and watched, their faces filled with a quiet, profound awe. They were witnessing a legend being born. 1 year later, the Stone Canyon Ranch was a different place. The harsh sounds of whips and angry shouts had been replaced by the sounds of laughter and soft singing. Jedediah Stone was still a strong man, but his strength was now tempered with a gentle patience that had earned him not just the respect, but the love of his men. His greatest change, however, was as a father. He had learned to listen, to be present, to see the world through his daughter's wise, empathetic eyes. Their bond, forged in the quiet understanding of a horse's heart, was now unbreakable. One beautiful summer evening, Jedediah and Lily rode Tempest together to the highest ridge on their property, a place that overlooked the entire valley as the sun set in a blaze of orange and purple. Below them, the ranch was peaceful, thriving. Mama would have loved this. Yes, she would have. She is Lilybug. She's in the song of the wind, the warmth of the Sunday. And she's in the heart of this great horse that brought us back together. And as they sat there, watching the sunset, a father and daughter united by a love that was stronger than any force on earth, Jedediah finally understood. He hadn't just tamed a wild horse. He had learned how to be the father his daughter truly needed, and the man his wife had always known he could be. The wild beast named Tempest had brought not a storm to their lives, but a profound and lasting peace. If this story of a father's love and the wisdom of a child touched your heart, click the video on your screen now for another unforgettable tale from the Wild West. Don't forget to subscribe and tell us what part of the story you loved most. Your support helps us tell new stories.